dynamics in different hydroclimatic regions worldwide. And they provided effective solutions to address these challenges. Stefan is a strategic program director, water, food, and ecosystems at IMI, International Water Management Research Institute. He's based in Colombo, Sri Lanka. He is also the program director of the CGIAR research program on water, land, and ecosystems. So ladies and gentlemen, you can see we have a very strong water expert, who would also be speaking to us. Finally, I want to introduce Ijoma Imananjo. Ijoma is the Chief Water Resources Management Officer and Acting Manager of the Water Coordination and Partnerships Division in the Water Development and Sanitation Department, also at the African Development Bank. His work at AFDB focuses on developing transboundary water investments on the continent and on building formal relations between the bank and regional bodies working on water resource management issues. Ijoma holds master's degrees in natural resource management and public administration from Harvard University and the University of Maryland, Baltimore, respectively, and a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering from Howard University. So ladies and gentlemen, these are our three keynote speakers for today. Niraj will go first, and then after that, we'll hear from Stefan, and then finally, we'll hear from Ijoma. So Niraj, please take the floor and do turn on. Yeah, I can see you already. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And it's a pleasure to be speaking on this important topic of water, climate, and food nexus from the Feed Africa perspective. The climate crisis has strongly manifested this year. Fresh in our minds are the extreme temperatures with all-time high records that were observed in North America and the Mediterranean region, while very high intensity rainfall events caused floods that ravaged Western Europe and East Asia. Millions are affected as lives are lost, infrastructure and houses are damaged, and crops are destroyed in the agricultural fields. Only 2 weeks ago, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change published its most recent report, in which they detail how anthropogenic greenhouse gases are causing unprecedented damage to the earth, and that urgent action is required. Extreme climate events are occurring more frequently and have created a water and food challenge. Climate change causes weather distribution patterns to change. For example, more erratic and more intense rainfall events are recorded in recent years. These contribute to an increasing number of flood events, such as the one happening along the Niger River and its tributaries, where floods lead to loss of rice and other crops. Then the latter onset of the rains in West Africa have led to shortened cropping seasons that made farmers more vulnerable to drought spells. Farmers were forced to adopt other crops where possible or even abandon their lands. Decreasing seasonal rainfall leads to lower river discharges, but this is not a linear one-to-one relationship. A 10% less rainfall on annual basis may lead decreasing river discharges by up to 20%. So it is paramount that this affects water availability to the farmers in the irrigation schemes who divert water from major rivers. In recent years, Southern Africa suffered from low rainfall during several consecutive years. This has led to an unprecedented drought that affected food security in the region, and it will take multiple years for the ecosystems to recover. Finally, in regions where temperatures increase due to climate change, induced global warming, there will be an increased water demand from crops. Eventually, more water will be required to produce the same amount of food, and this will put extra pressure on the already scarce water resources in the regions that are affected. The rural economies in Africa thrive on agriculture. 4 out of 5 Africans, many of them women, and almost all working on farms of 2 hectares or less, depend on agriculture to provide for their livelihood. Agriculture takes place primarily under rain-fed conditions. It is estimated that 90% of all cropping areas in Africa are rainfall dependent. This means that farmers depend on reliable and sufficient rainfall to cultivate a diverse range of nutritious crops and achieve decent yields. Only 10% of the cultivated areas in Africa are equipped with irrigation infrastructure for farmers. Reduced river flows, over-extraction of water, expansion of cities, and unproductive use of irrigation water, they all put sustainable use of these systems under pressure. Population growth is one of the other drivers for food insecurity. It has driven farmers into marginal lands for cultivation, leading to land degradation. In regions where the environmental risks are high, farmers are unwilling to invest in agricultural inputs such as improved seed, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and labor. And thus crop yields remain low and farmers stay in the poverty trap, leading to low resilience and food insecurity. Climate change and projected population growth will further exacerbate the state of water available to agriculture and further increase food insecurity. Bold action is required to transform agriculture in Africa for it to contribute to economic welfare and food and nutrition security for both the rural and urban population across the continent. Water security, meaning that reliable and sufficient water is available timely, is essential for farmers to further invest and make agriculture a profitable business. However, these are challenging times with a fast-changing climate that puts pressure on the available resources. Adaptation to the prevailing and future climatic conditions is key in this transformation. Finding climate-smart water solutions bundled with agronomic advice and climate services must be offered and adopted at large scale by the small-scale farmers. The African Development Bank is committed to investing in climate-smart agriculture for food security and welfare for the African population. Under the auspices of its president, Dr. Adesina, the AFDB launched in 2016 its strategy for agriculture transformation in Africa, 2016 to 2025. The Feed Africa strategy encompasses 4 specific objectives: contribute to eliminating extreme poverty in Africa and hunger and malnutrition in Africa, make the continent a net food exporter, and move Africa to the top of export-oriented global value chains where it has comparative advantage. In 2018, the flagship program, Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation, in short, TAT, was launched by the bank. TAT, a Pan-African initiative operating in over 30 countries, is an ecosystem of technology providers, scaling partners and donors that aim for large-scale adoption of improved seed, agronomic practices, and water solutions by African farmers. The goal is to boost the productivity and production of major value chain crops, including wheat, maize, rice, and sorghum. Through the TAT program, AFDB supports the International Water Management Institute, in short, IWMI, to scale affordable water solutions to the small-scale farmers. through the TART Water Enabler Compact, WEC. In the WEC, irrigation and water conservation solutions are demonstrated to a large number of farmers that operate both in rain-fed as well as irrigated agriculture. Conservation of rainfall in the topsoil is key to overcome drought spells. Various water conservation measures such as contour bundening, stone lines, zai pits, mulching, and combinations thereof are being scaled to farmers. The TART commodity value chain compacts that are enabled with water solutions include the TART rice compact, wheat compact, sorghum millet compact, and the orange fleshed sweet potato compact. Irrigation solutions for more efficient and productive use of water resources include sprinklers, improved scheduling, and land leveling. The WEC also supports rain-fed farmers to invest in small-scale irrigation infrastructure to water areas up to 2 hectares. Farmer-led irrigation development, as it is called, is considered by the African Union Commission as one of the 4 promising pathways for sustainable agricultural water development in Africa. So as African Development Bank, we look forward to continue working with all the like-minded partners for better use of our resources. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Niraj. You have really taken us through a lot of very important elements. We've talked about the reality of our times, that the challenge is actually very conspicuous and very obvious to a lot of us, because these challenges are happening all the time. You also talked about the fact, it's very, very surprising, but you did say only about 10% of the cultivated area are equipped with irrigation infrastructure, which basically means the lion's share of cultivation will depend on the rain. So when you have this challenge of rainfall not being so predictable, it's really a critical challenge to food security. You've also talked about the role of the Africa Development Bank in trying to make sure that they can come up with investment that supports climate smart agriculture. You've mentioned the Feed Africa with its 5 pillars, and you've also mentioned TART as a program that is set up specifically to implement the Feed Africa component. You mentioned the importance of water. It's not only in terms of supporting the water enabler and supporting the work of IMI, but you emphasize that water cuts across all the commodity compacts of TART in all those various compacts. So I think it's an excellent way of beginning this deliberation. And so I want to thank you very much. Whilst we move to the second keynote presenter, and we would, of course, if there are any specific questions which are put down in the chat box, we will be coming back to you. So thank you very much. And at this point, I'd like to call Dr. Stefan Olenbrook to share his perspectives with us. Stefan, please put on your video so we can see you.
Dr. Kwesi, ladies and gentlemen, pleasure to be with you. Could you quickly confirm that you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen, but please put it on presentation mode.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
Yeah, that's good.
Colleagues, it is a distinct pleasure to be here this evening for me and afternoon for you today. And I wish I would be in West Africa somewhere to discuss these issues. What I want to do in the next 10 minutes is to introduce a new research program we are working on, very much research for development program where we would like to directly connect to the objectives of Feed Africa, which were nicely summarized by the previous speaker. And that research for development initiative is called Nexus Gains. Before I go into the details of that initiative, I would like to show this one figure. And if you have read the introduction to that seminar today, it was nicely put together by Dr. Funke and Dr. Kwesi. And they say what we really need to do is to rethink, to transform the whole food system, and to do that not in isolation, but to rethink and transform it in a sustainable way that includes food, but also all the linkages to water, energy, and ecosystems. And we really need to think about the different components in a holistic way, for the lack of a better term. For instance, as a water professional, I often think about water is so important for the production part, down in the green bottom here. And yes, we need a lot of water to grow crops, to produce fodder, etc. But water is everywhere. It's in the pre-production, in the post-production, in the consumption, and also in the loss and disposal of the food. So we have to really think through the whole food system chain if we want to transform it. And the same applies to energy. The same applies to ecosystems. So we really have to have a much broader approach if we want to transform systems here. Therefore, let me introduce in the next 5-6 minutes a new initiative. It's called Nexus Gains, and it's about realizing gains across the water, energy, food, forest, biodiversity systems. Yes, I know it's a mouthful, but it's really it's demonstrating interconnectedness. And climate change is just on top of everything, because climate change directly influences water availability, quality, use, but also energy, food, forest, as well as biodiversity. So it's directly connected to all of that. And that's an initiative that we are co-leading that with my colleague Claudia Ringler from IFPRI. And what are the challenges that we try to address? It's water, land, and energy, forest, biodiversity systems. They are not working in isolation, and they're all interconnected. And they directly define rural livelihoods, food and nutrition security, and the economies. And we have to realize none of this is acting alone. All of these systems are under extreme stress because of climate change and because of other forces, human-induced forces like population pressure, change of diets, etc. And our national and regional institutions, they often struggle. Some even fail. They struggle to take into account that integrated nature of these systems. They struggle to take into account the transboundary interdependencies that we have in larger systems at regional or transboundary river basin scale. And therefore they're insufficient and need to do better. Point number 4 of the challenge statement is investors. At the one hand, we have many investors. The clean in the relation to climate adaptation, climate mitigation, there's significant funds available to sustainably invest in these systems. But investors often struggle as well. They don't know where to best invest, how to retain forest biodiversity, etc. But at the same time, not jeopardizing our hydrological dynamics. At the same time, still providing sufficient livelihoods and food for the people. At the same time, having direct links to clean energy and migration and what have you. So it's so complex that it's very difficult to invest wisely. And finally, we give a lot of emphasis to women and girls and other vulnerable groups, which are facing the most severe consequences if the systems are poorly understood and poorly managed. So this is the Nexus approach, and it's really about the water, food, energy nexus. And in the middle, we put also ecosystems. So forest biodiversity is important, as it is grassland and other systems. And it's with the focus on people and economies in an inclusive way. This nexus is really following a truly a systems approach. So it's understanding the systems and understanding the interdependencies between them. Some of you have been involved in the water sector for quite some years, and you know that wasn't the mantra for the last 20 to 25 years was integrated water resources management. And it's not that we have achieved that, and it's still a very important objective for the water sector. But this goes beyond IWRM. It goes beyond in such a way that it's not water-centric and looking at integrated water management. No, it's really a polycentric approach where we try to look at equally at water, food, energy, and ecosystems in an equal way. That means we have many stakeholders also to consider. So it's going beyond in complexity and considering also the political economies connected to solutions and interventions. It makes it quite complicated to achieve this in an integrated fashion. Number 4, we follow a basin approach. We want to work at large transboundary river basins in Africa and South Asia. Therefore, we can quantify these systems. A basin is always a beautiful thing for a hydrologist like me, that we can quantify fluxes within the basin for water, nutrients, and sediment. We also look at upstream, downstream interdependencies. For instance, we're going to work in the Nile, where you have very strong upstream, downstream interdependencies. Some 70% of the water arriving in Egypt comes from the Ethiopian highlands. So whatever water management is done in the uplands is, of course, very important for water availability downstream in Sudan and Egypt. So therefore, these interdependencies, it's about understanding them and managing them well. Scale interdependencies are also important. Often we do irrigation development or other small-scale solutions, but their impact at landscape, at watershed, or even basin scale is a different one. So if we don't understand these interventions across scales, they might even lead to counterintuitive results or even unwanted results. So water savings very locally in an agricultural field is good. You conserve water resources and you make water available for others. But the impact at larger scale might be different than you think. It's not necessarily always resulting in savings. I can expand on that. Number 6, it's very much about polycentric and multi-level governance. So it needs the basin commissions, it needs the transboundary and regional processes, as it needs the national processes and down to municipal and community level processes, where often the water management decisions are taken, where the decisions on investing in clean energy are taken, where the decisions about which crop to grow and how to irrigate or not are taken. So it's really across multi-level governance approach what is needed here in a polycentric way. Number 7, I said already that we get a lot of emphasis on women and youth and gender and inclusive approaches, as well as understanding, but also considering the political economy that is around these solutions. Quickly, objectives. It's about fostering integrated management of this nexus. And to do that for sustainable development in transboundary river basins, we want to co-develop and scale nexus solutions with modeling and foresight methodologies. We want to boost water productivity, but not only at the farm scale, but also looking at impacts of boosting water productivity or opportunities at basin scale, and also looking at other sectors, agriculture, as well as industries, cities, and other water users. Number 5, we look at sustainably energizing food systems, sustainably from a water and ecosystem perspective. That means solar irrigation investment, but also small-scale hydropower, biomass, etc. Number 4 is we look at cross-sectoral multi-stakeholder governance systems. And 5, we look at capacity development and leadership programs. I come to that. So these are the different activities we want to do, and I'm happy to expand, but I don't want to go over my 10 minutes. And just a few innovations that we currently write up and develop the methodologies that we can develop then in the coming 3 years are a decision support a system for boosting water productivity, so giving advice on investment for water productivity at basin scale. Number 2 is we want to work on a strategic water storage diagnostic. What we see often, investments in water storage often lead to gray infrastructure investment, to big dams, because there's a lot of focus on we need more storage, and then there's a lot of environmental and social assessments done to study the intervention, and then often already so much money is invested that it's very difficult to go away from this large-scale infrastructure. But what we want to offer here is a much more a pre-investment diagnostic, which analyzes for a whole country or whole river basin all storage possibilities, including green infrastructure, groundwater, soil water, wetlands, lakes, small-scale reservoirs, as well as larger-scale infrastructure, and trying to analyze that, and also looking at what are the storage needs. So much more pre-processing and pre-analysis of storage water needs before investments are coming. 5, we look at a groundwater governance toolbox. 4 is a leadership program. We often feel there's a lot of good Nexus ideas around there, but it lacks leadership. It lacks really trained staff, leaders, emerging leaders, sometimes younger colleagues who design and lead and implement the Nexus solutions that we need. So therefore, we want to give emphasis on that. We want to work on multi-stakeholder platforms, as well as biodiversity and diverse business models. Sorry, I'm running a little bit out of time. We have a whole full-fledged theory of change we currently write up, but I don't want to bore you with that, and want to jump to the conclusion and say, at Nexus Gains, we follow a truly integrated approach to support the transformation of food, land, and water systems. And very much when I read through the Feed Africa strategy, I believe we really link to that with the energizing food system and sustainably increase yields, etc. So we really link to that well. The work streams and innovations respond to that, number 2, and we look for partnership. That's my last point. So far, we look at working in East Africa, but other river basins might be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to discussion to explore new ways of how we can scale this concept to other parts of Africa. Kwesi, thank you so much for your attention, and sorry I went 1.5 minutes over time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stefan. This is very exciting. I believe this is part of the 1CGIAR initiatives that are being designed. So let me just take the opportunity to basically mention to those who may not be familiar that the CG, which has consistently consisted of 15 independent, more or less independent centers, is now moving into a domain of creating one integrated whole, just so that we will be able to work together better in addressing the major global challenges. And one of those challenges, I'm happy to see Stefan's presentation focusing on this whole issue of Nexus, water, energy, food, climate, and really looking at it, and also looking at the trade-offs that come as a result of having these interactions. So I think it's a very excellent example of the way the CG is actually working with partners and recognizing that these are areas where you have so many other partners already out in the field. So a critical part is the partnerships. So I'm happy you made that emphasis on the partnership that I mentioned, as well as the importance of what you call polycentric and multi-level governance. This is not something you just deal with one sector. It's multi-sectoral. So I think that's very exciting. Thank you so much, Stefan. And we'll move now to our third presenter, who is going to be Ijoma. Since I did the introduction a while ago, let me just remind you, Ijoma is Chief Water Resources Management Officer and Acting Manager of the Water Coordination and Partnership Division in the Water Development and Sanitation Department at the African Development Bank. So, Ijoma, this is over to you, please.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect. Yes, so thank you for, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to sort of talk about what we're doing in the water development and sanitation department in AFDB, and how our work links to the Feed Africa imperative. Okay, yes, so I think I'll just sort of piggyback on what everybody has said. That's sort of the benefit of coming sort of last on this. So everybody's talked a little bit about sort of the high fives, water security, etc. And it was really sort of noteworthy to see the first poll question that really talked about the importance of water. So for us, water at the bank is not just key for Feed Africa, but for the entire high fives, Light Up Africa, Integrate Africa, Industrialize Africa, and improve the quality of life for the people of Africa. Water sits at the nexus of many global issues, including food, energy, climate, human security, economic growth, etc. It's absolutely critical to meeting the SDG 6, which is ensuring access to water and sanitation for all. Yeah, so I talked about the high fives, but I want to really go into what the AFDB sort of Feed Africa strategy and what the 4 specific goals are. It's really to contribute to eliminating extreme poverty, and by 2025, ending hunger and malnutrition by the same year. Make Africa a net exporter of food and move Africa to the top of export-oriented global value chains, where we have a comparative advantage. Yeah, so the Nexus, sort of water availability, absolutely critical to water security, food security, and energy security. We know some of the challenges with climate change, higher temperatures, and extremes, precipitation, and also very critical, something that I talk about a lot in my work, is that only 5% of cultivated land in Africa is irrigated. So we're well underperforming in that area. And when you have sort of variable climate, it leads to sort of the peaks and troughs we see in regards to sort of productivity on the continent. So this year, we just launched a water policy in the bank, which will be implemented by a strategy that is going to be approved in the next month or 2. I just want to talk a little bit about those documents, because those documents sort of guide what we are doing sort of in the bank. Sorry, 1 second. What we're doing in the bank when it comes to, sorry, there's something on my screen. Yeah, so what we're doing in the bank when it comes to sort of water and sort of the water sector and how the water sector impacts all these sort of things that I've mentioned. So agricultural water management is a priority in the policy. It's a big part of the policy, and it really is sort of, because we know that agriculture is by far the largest consumer of water in Africa, somewhere around 80%, just a little bit less than that. Trends in agriculture are expected to increase volume of water use, which will also affect water quality. Water security is therefore important for food security and sustainable agricultural growth. So among other initiatives, the bank is really financing climate smart agriculture, sustainable agriculture. We're supporting sort of climate smart irrigation strategies, programs to promote the use of non-conventional water resources, promote innovative financing, and improve water security for agriculture, and so on. So yes, and so for us, this area is really sort of a very strong sort of collaboration for us between our different departments, agriculture and water, around sort of agricultural water management. Yes, and another big part of this is sort of really around disaster risk management when it comes to water-related disaster risk. The bank is supporting the adoption of integrated disaster risk management and emergency response planning. Sorry, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Sorry about. Yeah. So really for us, integrated disaster risk management is really critical for us. Really looking at water storage and review of relevant laws, transboundary cooperation measures. So we're working a lot with RBOs, etc., around sort of transboundary water cooperation, and really trying to develop hydromet networks to better understand disaster risks, prediction, and early warning mechanisms. This is all under sort of the water policy and direction. Now, the water strategy, which is sort of what the implementation document for the water policy, we have several pillars, as you can see, but the pillar I'm going to talk about around is really about water for food. As you can see, so water for food is really one of the key pillars, the one in green on your screen. And the focus under that pillar is really around sort of 4 operational priorities, the OPs. So one is to reform and strengthen enabling environments in regards to water for food, increase water availability for agriculture through sustainable and resilient infrastructure investments, utilize modern and appropriate technology to substantially increase water productivity, and to pursue anchor investments for enhancing fisheries. So it's really linking blue economy with other aspects of agriculture. So really the water for food pillar is amongst sort of the other pillars, and there's an overarching pillar that we have is really around IWR, so integrated sustainable water resources management. So for us, really, so this pillar has basically two outcomes. One is really to increase availability and efficient use of water for food production, and ultimately improve nutrition while minimizing negative impacts. And also increased water availability will come in terms of increased water productivity and more land under production. So this strategic pillar 3 supports food security, nutrition outcomes under Feed Africa. The operational priorities of this pillar interact with and complemented by the overarching pillar, as I mentioned earlier, which is around integrated water resources management. As I mentioned earlier, one of the key issues for us is really around this untapped irrigation potential, which can help to stabilize and increase agricultural production. And we all know about agriculture and irrigation, so I'm not going to go into that and sort of the advantages and sort of the reasons why irrigation is critical. But I just want to say that increased water availability for irrigation is strongly linked to the Feed Africa's agricultural transformation initiatives, including those related to infrastructure. So for us, really, this pillar and around sort of increased water availability is sort of a very strong focus for us, especially with a special focus on small and medium-sized farmers. Just very quick conclusions that I hope that this can spur a sort of conversation. But to say that water resources in Africa are really experiencing significant stress already. Projections over the next 20 years show increase in demand for these resources as populations, economies, and consumption rates grow. Globally, agriculture accounts for 3.3 billion meters cubed, or 71% of water withdrawals. Climate change is projected to increase the number of water-stressed regions on the continent and exacerbate shortages in regions of existing water stress. Scientists, farmers, and business community consider water availability in the form of extreme weather events one of the highest risks to food production over the next 10 years. And integrated, and this is the key for us, that integrated intersectoral and transformational approaches to attaining water security are therefore crucial to attaining food security. So I think for me, that's it for now, and look forward to hearing more and talking, having conversation around sort of these issues. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ijoma. When I was introducing you, I think I should also have said that you are also representing Dr. Oswald Chanda, who is the director at the AFDB in charge of the water division. So we're really glad to hear you and to see that there is actually a water strategy. You know, there is a water strategy which has a number of pillars. And one of these pillars is water for food, obviously. So that fits very squarely with the kind of subject matter we are dealing with, water for food. And then I also like your emphasis on stressing the critical nature of the integration, because this is not something you can deal with, because you made the point that water sits at the nexus of many global challenges. So a lot of those global challenges, it's one thing to talk about them, but it's another thing for us to come up with solutions. And those solutions must be seen in the nexus context. So thank you so much for sharing how the Africa Development Bank is working with partners and supporting countries in making these sort of investments. That's very, very helpful. So, ladies and gentlemen, I know you would all agree with me that these three presenters the keynote presentations have given us very rich background. We're going to have two very quick polls. I would request Tunde to put on poll number 2 so that we can. Okay, so now we have poll number 2. It basically says, now we've talked about all these challenges. Now, this poll is making a statement, and it says reasonable attention is being given to water, energy, food systems nexus within agricultural, not just research, but research and delivery, agricultural transformation. So if you strongly agree, you click it. If you agree, if you somewhat disagree, if you strongly disagree, please. Or if you are not sure, you click it. Is this statement really in line with your thinking that reasonable attention is being given to water, energy, food system nexus? And this attention can be attention at the level of countries, attention at the level of investors, attention at the level of institutions. Do we consider what is being done in water as adequate or reasonable, at least? So we have 30 more seconds to get people clicking where they feel they align with the most. So far, it looks like a very interesting distribution, but we'll see a few more seconds and then the poll will be closed. Okay, Tunde, I think you can go ahead and let's see the results. Wow. This is a real nice distribution. It's really nice distribution. We've got about 17% who strongly agree that reasonable attention is being given. But then the largest group is a somewhat disagree, where they really don't feel it's reasonable and it's adequate, and about 26% in that regard. We see agree and strongly disagree all having 24%. So this will be quite interesting to analyze. Some very interesting different perspectives on what, and then a few people not sure, which is fine. I mean, these issues are not always clear to everybody's domain. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, all this will be captured as part of the products from this work. It basically means we need to do more in terms of making the issues clearer and also showing what is being done in a much clearer sort of fashion. But it's very diverse, which is very fine. Okay, so we'll have our third poll now before we move to the next phase. Our third poll, poll number 3, is coming up shortly. Okay. And let me thank you for being so active in responding to the poll. This one says, which of the following factors should be prioritized to enhance resilience? And by the way, all the 4 factors listed are important. But if you were going to put some money into a project, which of these areas would you say is the top priority for you? You know, get it going and others can follow. So that's what we are asking for. So please, let's get on. We still have a few seconds. Okay, Tunde, after 5 seconds, you can give us the results. Okay, thank you very much, Tunde. All right, so here again, we see the need to provide appropriate technology for leveraging on the water, food, and climate nexus. Yeah, you know, we said a short while ago, that knowing that these challenges exist and they are getting more frequent is the easiest part, because everybody knows that. What is critical is what technology do we bring to solve the issues? And what this poll indicates is that that is a critical area to work on the technology bit. But all the other domains, supporting farmers, access, the policy, all these other domains are important, but we really need to address this issue of technology moving forward. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening in and being part of the discussion thus far. This is just part of the meeting. We are moving to the next phase of the meeting, where I will be calling my co-moderator, Funke. Dr. Funke Kofi is with the International Water Management Institute, and she's based in Accra, Ghana. So let me pass it on, over to you, Funke.
Thank you very much, Basin. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone, depending on where you are located. We are, of course, very delighted to have you for this virtual forum, and thank you for your contribution so far. It's very interesting to follow the conversations. We can see that from the keynote presentations, our response to the poll, that achieving resilience requires the need to transform how, where, and when we use water for the production and, of course, of processing of healthy foods. I noted particularly a statement from one of the keynote speakers that water variability in the form of extreme weather events is one of the highest risks to food production in Africa. And so, particularly for the next 10 years. So it means that there's need to accelerate actions. There's need to look into the deployment of climate adaptation measures, innovative nasal solutions that will help us at scale to support African food system. It's also clear that our interventions by stakeholders must be systemic, must be adaptive, and must be delivered in an equitable and inclusive way. But the good news is that there are several game changers that are already currently being promoted globally. So we are not starting from the scratch. There are quite a lot of innovations, there are a lot of things that are going on in the system that we can capitalize on. First of all, there are things around water and energy efficient technologies that are being promoted globally. There are things around when we talk about technology, it's not just water solutions, but there are things around drought tolerance, seed varieties. There are innovations around solar powered irrigation systems, several other technologies like that that are being promoted globally. Apart from technologies, there are things around digital innovations, that are being used to help achieve some radical improvements in the efficiency of water use. For example, there are innovations that are working across, there's Water Secure Africa project that is working across Africa to bridge the technological divide, between available remote sensing data and some of the practical tools that are actually needed by farmers to help them to produce food more efficiently and profitably with less risk, climate risk. There are tools digital tools like water accounting tools that can help to actually balance the way water is allocated across sectors that will help us to optimize the use of water resources. Apart from digital innovations, there are also innovative financing options that are available to incentivize private and commercial investors to support sustainable use of water technologies and to help to have more climate smart innovations at scale. So all those ones are available in the system. They are all game-changing solutions. They are enabling policies and strategies, and I'm very glad to listen to this water policy and water strategy from the African Development Bank. Close related to that is also the African Union Commission's framework on irrigation and agriculture water management development for Africa, which kind of set forth different implementation pathways to guide member states' investment in water for food production. There are several national climate adaptation plans that kind of prioritize water development, use, exploration, and management for food production. So these are all game-changing solutions. There's increasing investment by international development community. The multinational development banks, they support countries through critical investments in infrastructure and institutional reforms with regard to different forms of irrigation, for example, in different countries. United Nations agencies like FAO and several bilateral donors, they are increasingly prioritizing water solutions to food systems. They are also kind of increasing local, national, regional, and global cooperation, multi-stakeholder corporations that are fostering interactive learning and building institutional capacity to facilitate a kind of systemic change and inclusive outcomes when it comes to water solutions. So quite a lot of things are going on. The whole of the research community also is there, helping and scaling innovations and support the private investors to have solutions at scale. So these are some of the things that are already emerging, game changers in the system globally, and of course in Africa. The most recent of such coalition, for example, is being proposed by the UN Food System Summit, as an action area on climate resilient development pathways to focus on Nexus approach that will help to enhance resilience within the food systems. So things are moving very fast. The tax program is not left out. We see that the African Development Bank funded tax program is already making quite a lot of advancements and bringing out some solutions. And now we have great panelists that have lined up now, 3 people, to showcase some of the practical solutions that are being scaled out through tax. Each of them will speak for about 10 minutes. And as for the previous session, please just leave your questions on the chat box after the 3 presentations, but we call them up to respond to some of the questions that we may have. So the first person, I'll just introduce them. Dr. Ernest Asiedu is the coordinator of the Rice Compact of tax based at the African Rice Center in Côte d'Ivoire. We know that the African Rice Center is a Pan-African center of excellence for rice research, development, and capacity building. Dr. Asiedu is a seed scientist. He started his career with the Crop Research Institute in Ghana, and he joined CORAF also, worked many years for CORAF before he joined the Africa Rice. he actually pioneered the reform of the Ghana seed sector, taking it from the public sector led pro-initiative to more strongly towards private sector driven seed sector in Ghana. So Dr. Asiedu will be talking to us about his experiences in promoting the rice compact within the TAT program. I see that he's ready. So because he's ready, I will just allow him to go ahead and make his presentation. Over to you, Dr. Asiedu. Thank you very much. We can't hear you, please.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for the introduction. All right. Yes, I'm doing this presentation on behalf of my colleagues whose name have been listed here. And this is for the Rice Compact that is being actually hosted by the Africa Rice Center based in Cote d'Ivoire. As a background, we say, and I think we all know, that we spend so much money importing huge tons, quantities of rice yearly, over 32 million, in terms of metric tons yearly. And even with that, we have about 42% production consumption gap. In fact, that's why the imports are so high. And the actual import is, as I said earlier, million tons consumed. Our consumption is 32 million tons consumed, 42% gap. And the import is 13.85 million tons. The import bill is so high. I mean, we spend so much money, 5.9 billion every year to import rice. It's because the productivity is quite low, and also the competitiveness, market competitiveness in terms of the quality of the rice grain that we produce. So we cannot outcompete our competitors like Vietnam, USA, and Thailand. They are high yielding, the quality is good. So, I mean, the competitiveness of rice, it depends on the yield and then the quality, the milled quality of the rice. We have, the reasons are there. We have low access to, farmers have low access to climate smart, high yielding varieties and other management practices, farming practices and equipment for land preparation, water management and processing. Then access to credit is also another thing, and also to inputs. The post-harvest losses are high. In terms of quantity and quality, if you put the quantity and quality together, it's about 42%. Sometimes the rice is produced, you can't even consume. It's just lost in quality. So, in addition to improving the productivity in the field, for rice is very sensitive to quality. If the quality is not good, consumers will not accept. And they have special taste for certain varieties and certain quality of the outputs. So, I'm trying to go to the next slide, which is not showing. Yeah, then, Okay. So the development objective is rapidly expand access of smallholder farmers, majority being women, to high-yielding agricultural technologies to improve their food production, to assure food security and raise rural incomes, deliver regional public goods by scaling up agricultural technology across similar agroecological zones. We are to actually increase yield by 25%, reach out to about 2.26 million beneficiaries, which we have, overachieved. And we should engage women and youth strongly. In rice, women play an extremely important role. And as of now, we are about 52-56% women involvement in the rice value chain within the rice compact. So women are really critical in our engagement, as well as the youth. Sorry, my listening freezes. I don't know why. I want to move to the next slide. Can I be linked? Okay. All right. So I'll go to the technologies directly. One, we have climate smart varieties, and I'm highlighting two of them, which are the highly demanded climate smart varieties all over the continent of Africa. Orylox is the leading demanding variety. It's a lowland and irrigated system in terms of ecological adaptation. One thing about Orylox is also short duration, and then you can have 3 crops within a year if you have a very good irrigation system. In terms of grain quality, it's very good. It's a aromatic long grain, which many consumers like. And as I said, short duration, about 100 days is already matured. The yield very high, about 6.5 metric tons. As you know, rice and water are very close friends. Even the upland rice still need a lot of water. So they do well in high rainfall areas like Sierra Leone, Liberia, etc. Then we have Nerica L19, especially sub-1. Sub-1 is the second, I would say the Nerica L19 is the second leading, I mean, in terms of demanding, that's the second in the order. It's also lowland irrigated systems. So you can see that lowland and irrigated systems are extremely important, and it means that water is very important for rice. This variety is flood and iron toxicity tolerant, which means that the extremes of climate, when there's flood, it will stand. And when there's drought, it will also tolerate it. Now, the extremes of conditions are things we are managing. It's not only drought, climate change is not only drought, it can also be flood. There's also resistance to stem borers and bacterial, I mean, certain diseases like bacterial blight and blast, etc., which are very common in rice. And the yield is about 5 to 7 tons. It's very preferred. High yield, I mean, it tills a lot, and it's very profuse. I mean, in terms of vegetative development and yield. So it also compensates for space. I mean, if you miss some missing gaps because of germination problem, the tillering will compensate. So it's a very high productive. And we are amazed that farmers have learned that climate smart is real. I mean, climate change is real. So they are demanding of these varieties, 2 high demanding varieties. I mean, it's in order that they know that going for the upland rice is quite a risk. Then we have come to the hybrids, which are about 10 to 14 tons. I mean, in terms of yield per hectare, very, very highly productive. They are all lowland irrigated rice. One of them has been released in Senegal. They are aromatic, I mean, long grain and very good grain quality, which consumers like. And as I said, their yield is very, very high, over 100% of the existing varieties that we have in the system. Okay, I'll move to the next slide, but sorry, when I hit my bar, it takes a while, I don't know, for some reason. Can I get a backstopping from the clearinghouse? Possibly, you show what you have. It will help me because my.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
My thing has frozen here.
Yeah, today, please, can you help us? High-tech communications, can you project from your side?
Yeah, starting from the climate smart varieties.
Thank you.
Okay, we can move to the 4th slide. Please, we can move on. We can move on to the next slide. I'll finish with this slide, please. Let's move on. Yeah, this is still the 3rd slide. The next one is a photo. Please, can we get a full screen? Full screen, please. Let's go back one step to look at the photos. Oh la la. Okay, all right. These are the varieties, some of the varieties I was talking about. Orylox, you can see, is very profuse, I mean, in terms of growth and in terms of yield, with very good water management. The hybrids are also profuse. They are very productive. The vegetative growth is very good, and the yield is heavy. So you get about 10 tons per hectare here. And one thing good, as I said earlier, you can have three crops in a year. And so can you imagine if you have 10 tons per hectare and getting three crops? I mean, the production is going to be extremely high. And also, if you don't want to go to three crops, you can have one crop plus vegetables following. You can plant legumes, you can plant vegetables that follow. So you can increase your revenue or your production by adding other crops or by planting rice after rice. So these are some of the advantages of these early, very productive, climate smart varieties. Let's move to the water management issues. The water management practices that we are promoting is the Smart Valley technology. These are suited for the lowlands and the irrigated system again, and it's a stepwise procedure focusing on the design, layout, and construction of low-cost water control infrastructure. Then we have the Rice Advice. The Rice Advice is a digital tool, and we normally put it on the tablet, and the youth have been using it to provide services to farmers. It's adapted to irrigated lowland, and it's favorable rainfall lowland where the risk of drought and flooding are quite low. The digital solution tool with an app installed on telephones or tablets. And the farmers use the GAB or the technology to increase their production. And as I said, it creates jobs for the youth. The youth use it and provide services to the farmers. It tells the farmer what level of fertilizer to use to make profits and get a high yield, optimize their profits. So it advises them and link them to agri-input suppliers. So the farmers are very happy. If you go to Nigeria, for example, Nasarawa State, they are using it so much to promote the use of good agricultural practices, and it's catching up so high. So it's a technology that goes along with the Smart Valley. So, I mean, in areas like Madagascar, using this technology, farmers have been able to increase their yield from about 3.3 tons per hectare to 7.5 tons per hectare. I mean, under farmers' condition. And if you have this high yield and you have even double cropping in a year, then the yield gap of 42% in the entire continent can be drastically reduced. So water management is extremely important in rice productivity and production to bridge the production consumption gap. And we are encouraging the upscale of these technologies alongside the genetic material that I've highlighted so that we can boost our production to arrive at an objective of achieving food security and also income generation. Let's move to the next slide, please. This demonstrates the Smart Valley, which is, I've described already, to boost the rice yields and rice production. And the Rice Advice technology or innovation digital tool is what is shown on the right side. Let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah. With all these technologies, if you don't have the right post-harvest technology, your access to market will be limited. So to complement all these genetic material, the water management are two post-harvest technology. One is the acid thresher. The acid thresher threshes the paddy, and it also cleans it and bring out very uniform paddy, which makes its milling very simple and very easy. It's very profitable, as I have really demonstrated here. It's low cost and it's very small size, and women like it because they can move it easily. It's adapted to women, very friendly to them. They can move it from field to field, and it's also cheaper for them to use. And it's well adapted in so many countries, including Nigeria and Ivory Coast and so many other places that we are promoting this technology. The final part of the post technology is the gem parboiling technology. This technology, I mean, involves some kind of soaking in tank made from stainless stainless steel, which helps the rice to be conditioned in such a way that when you mill, you come out with very good, I mean, products that is market preferred. It replaces what the women used to do, which is very tiring, with a lot of drudgery, etc. And it's also more profitable and environmental friendly. You don't have to use firewood to do the power boiling, but there's a stove, and you can also use the rice husk as fuel. So it's very profitable, very environmental friendly, and women like it. It doesn't produce smoke, which affect their health. So I mean, this complements the field level productivity practices that are climate smart. So with this complement of technologies, you can get very good yields, getting 2 or 3 production cycles in a year, and complement with very good post-harvest technology. I mean, you can get very good access to market because your yields are high, the quality of your products is also very high. Let us move down to, I will show you some pictures of the technologies I'm talking about. The thresher is on the left, as you could see. The middle is the power boiling technology that women have adopted. On the right is the product that they sent to market, which is of very high demand. They have 2 segments of markets: the open markets that all, the community go, and they have the supermarkets that demand certain specific quality of rice, perfume, etc., etc. So that is the supermarkets are more sophisticated, but there are open markets where you can get the rice, very good quality. They are cheaper because they are mass produced, and also they are targeted to the masses. So I mean, we have access to these markets because of the good quality product that we come out with. Let us move to the next slide, and I'll be going through the summary and conclusions. So, upscale the development of more climate varieties and hybrids should be the focus. We need to upscale more of these technologies that I've described, and then the deployment of the smart valley technology that I described is extremely important. That's the good agricultural practice and the rights advice inclusive. Then we need to support the women and youth groups and the millers. I mean, with improved processing equipment, as I described, and then build the capacity of the farmers and processors to adopt climate smart technology and also the processing technology. And with this put together, the innovations could boost rice productivity and market competitiveness to achieve the objective that we are looking for. That's to reduce the import bill and ensure food security. So at this point, I will say thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sedu. You have taken us through the whole value chain, right from climate smart varieties to water management and good agricultural practices in the field, and to post-harvest innovations. It's noteworthy. One of your statements where you say with 3 croppings, the farmer can get up to 30 tons per year. All they need is to be sure that they have water available and they have the right varieties to actually grow. And it's also very interesting how some of those innovations you have presented that START is supporting, they're actually helping the young people, the youth, to serve as providers, service providers to farmers, and also helping women in different dimensions. So thank you very much for your excellent contributions. I'm sure that there will be many questions, maybe some comments to come back to you on that. Now, the next 2 presenters are going to focus more on water. The next person is Dr. Sandazwa from the International Water Management Institute. IMI, as you all know, work on innovative solutions to water solutions for sustainable development. So Sanda is working for IMI and is leading the Water Enabler Compact. He's a trained irrigation engineer and geospatial analyst. He has quite a lot of experience with remote sensing, with irrigation, smallholder agriculture. He has worked for over 10 years in West Africa, and he has quite a lot of experience to share with us. Apart from Sanda, there will also be the next person, Dr. Esata Bamanati, who is a senior researcher in agriculture water management within the Institute for Environment and Agricultural Research Inera in Burkina Faso. Isata has a PhD in hydrogeology and irrigation. So she's been working in Inera for quite many years, over 15 years. She has experience in water management for agriculture, and she's serving as the national coordinator for Water Enabler Compact in Burkina Faso. So Sanda, over to you, and shortly after that, Isata, you come up to also make your presentation. Thank you very much. Please, 10 minutes maximum, Sanda.
Yes, I will do my best. Am I loud and is my presentation visible?
Yes, it's visible. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Kofi. So today I will be talking about affordable water solutions for small-scale farmers and how we scale them in the countries where we work. So let me get back to the previous point that was mentioned on the three crops. On the 3 crops per year, and that is definitely possible in many regions of Africa. The only place where I've seen that it can occur in the rain-fed conditions is in Rwanda, in the Rwandan highlands, where they have all year round, almost all year round, high-intensity rainfall, and only a short period where it is dry, but where they can still cultivate crops with the remaining soil moisture. I would say in all other regions, you need to irrigate, you need to provide water to the plants to do so. Now, what is the common practice? That is what you see on the upper left corner. This is a farmer in Malawi. He has a small plot, and he is irrigating it with water that he can tap from an open well in a lowland area. Very heavy work. He can only irrigate a small area, but he is able nonetheless to cultivate 2 to 3 crops per year. So during the rainy season he has his maize, and during the dry season he is cultivating the vines for the orange flesh sweet potato, so that they are ready when the rains start. With our solutions, we have been able to equip his area with irrigation equipment. And he is now cultivating 3 crops per year. He is diversifying in his crops. He has expanded his area, and water is a real solution for him to expand and to diversify and intensify his cropping. So he's a happy farmer. Talking about the Water Enabler Compact, in his keynote, the AFDB representative talked about the TAAT program. The Water Enabler Compact, that is scaling the solutions to the small-scale farmers. The goal of this compact is to support, in fact, the commodity compacts, like we've seen the presentation from the rice compact, but also the wheat compact, orange flesh sweet potato, as I mentioned, to support them with water solutions that will make their technologies even more productive. So water is really a key for their technologies to be performant. So the goal is the widespread adoption and use of small-scale irrigation and water management solutions. So targeting both the irrigated areas and the rain-fed areas. So how do we scale these water solutions to small-scale farmers? It starts with an enabling environment. So farmers need to be in a situation where they can actually buy equipment, and when they invest in their equipment, they also need to be sure that the farming becomes profitable. So it's about bringing the policies, the private sector, public sector all together, and make sure that that it is functioning and that missing links are solved. That is very important. It's about partnerships and capacity development. IMI is not alone in this effort. We work with national institutes very efficiently. We work with NGOs, extension services at national level. We work on the capacity development of the lead farmers, extension agents, young service providers, as I will explain, creating training materials for the technologies and ensure that they are implemented effectively. Sorry. And finally, it's about technology delivery. So it's about demonstrating the technologies on the field, but not only the water solutions, but combine it with the solutions that, for example, we saw in the presentation from the rice compact. So the right varieties with the right technologies to provide the water to the fields, and that only that will lead to sustainable increase of the productivity and the production. So our scaling approach is that we train extension agents, we train youth service providers, so we train the youth in the technologies and make sure that they are knowledgeable about those technologies. Extension agents, of course, they are in good contact with the small-scale farmers on the field. They have their network, and jointly they set up demonstration sites. So the network from the extension agent is very important, and the youth service providers, they can provide the service to the farmers should they be interested in adopting certain technologies. So supporting with the design, the implementation, and the maintenance of the technologies. This is our approach. Technologies that we are scaling. Let me go straightly to the next slide. As said, we work for irrigated agriculture as well as for rain-fed agriculture. It's about conserving the moisture in the soil. If you talk about the rain-fed agriculture, so typical solutions for soil and water conservation. Contour lines, stone lines, contour ridging, tide ridging. It's about land leveling, Zai and half moon, and mulching. And of course, we also deploy combinations thereof. So in certain cases, we do contour ridging combined with mulching, for example. Demonstrating these technologies in the field is very important. We have seen that farmers, often technologies are new to them. They haven't seen them before. Seeing is believing, so we put a lot of efforts in demonstrating the technologies, very much in participatory approaches. So it's not us coming in and telling them, well, this is what we're going to do, but we discuss with the farmers on what are the different options, what would be suitable, and that is what we're going to demonstrate. And of course, we provide in the first and the second year support to the farmers to make sure that the technologies are working, and we organize visibility events around these demonstration sites to ensure there's a large public is exposed to these technologies. For irrigated agriculture, talking about irrigation water development, so it's not about only the existing areas, but also a lot about the support provided to farmers to develop new areas, and we put a lot of effort on farmer-led irrigation development. So not so much on the large-scale schemes, but investing in farmers who would like to invest in irrigation infrastructure, providing low-cost solutions. That is key to the work that we do. It should be affordable and easy to use for farmers. Those are characteristics that to us are a guarantee for success. We do river water pumping solutions. We have shallow groundwater tube wells. Dr. Aysata will later talk more about that. Conveyance systems to make sure that water is efficiently used and that the pumping costs are reduced. It's also about developing basins, furrows, sprinkler and drip irrigation. Systems have been demonstrated in certain cases. And also there's a group about irrigation scheduling. So how can we use the water resources more efficiently to ensure that we have higher water productivity? The technologies that we provide for that is a wetting front detector chameleon soil water sensor. Should go forward. So this is an example of the shallow tube wells. This is a technology that was a fairly simple intervention, which cost maybe $500. We can tap into shallow groundwater resources. So these are highly untapped in many lowland regions in Africa. So shallow groundwater is between 5 and 10 meters of the surface. And with this technology and a simple pump, whether that's a fuel pump or a solar pump, you can use those water resources to irrigate 1, 2, 3 hectares of your agricultural field. So a real solution for farmer-led irrigation development. Again, Dr. Aysata will show some examples of Burkina where this has been applied successfully. This is another example, a very novel technology that has not been developed by the International Water Management Institute, but by our partners in Australia. We have been strongly involved in evaluation. It's a simple 3 simple sensors that can be put in different depth in the soil. So one in the root zone, one below the root zone, another one slightly deeper. With this card that can be connected, it provides an indication of the water status at a different depth. So obviously, if you irrigate, you want field capacity in your root zone, and you want the zone below, in principle, remains dry, because otherwise you put too much water. So this is a simple tool for a farmer to evaluate after an irrigation event whether he or she has applied sufficient water, too little water, or excessive water, and that leads to higher water productivity, but also a higher fertilizer use efficiency, because you can imagine if you apply too much water, you leach your valuable fertilizers. This is a case study from for the wheat compact, where the TAD Water Enabler Compact has supported wheat farmers in 3 countries, Nigeria, Sudan, and Ethiopia, with a variety of technologies to make the wheat, to expand the areas and to make wheat cultivation more efficient, more productive. So for example, in Sudan, we have performed land leveling. They're working in plains, floodplains. Lands are not well leveled, and you can see that within the field there are large differences in performance. This also affects, of course, the water productivity. We've shown that with land leveling, farmers can reduce the water that is being applied to the fields, but also that they have higher yields. So net effect is a higher water productivity. In Nigeria, we have worked with the shallow tube well technology. Same for, no, not the same. In Ethiopia, we worked on more efficient scheduling by providing simple tools that help farmers to measure the water and to apply the right amount of water to their fields. This is about rice. We've conducted this work in 3 countries in West Africa: Nigeria, Mali, and Burkina Faso. In Nigeria, we've seen that shallow tube wells are actually quite common. They've been introduced in the lowlands, in the inland valleys, and they're commonly used. But if we go to very similar regions in Mali and Burkina Faso, they appear non-existent. We know that in few places they do exist, but they're hardly being used. Whereas in these countries there are large floodplains, especially in the south, Bobo Dioulasso, Sikasso, where there are large floodplains with shallow groundwater that remains within 7 to 10 meters even during the dry season, but it's hardly being used. And they have some open wells where with buckets they use the water to irrigate the fields during the dry season, but there's no motorized water pumping. These technologies have been introduced, and we've seen that it led to an intensification. The lowlands are hardly used during the dry season, but it has given the opportunity to the farmers to cultivate 2 times a rice crop, so one during the wet season, one during the dry season, or what farmers often prefer is to move to vegetable cultivation during the dry season, as it gives a higher revenue. So this is just to show you some of the technologies that have been introduced in the different countries where we have worked, which have contributed to creating the resilience among the farmers. They are less dependent on the water. They have better water availability during the growing seasons. It has increased their crop productivity. In certain cases, they have been able to expand the agricultural areas. So it has overall contributed to the TAD objectives of improving the productivity and improving the production within Africa. Thank you very much. Back to you, Funke.
Thank you very much, Sander. You have taken us through the various solutions that the Water Enabling Compact has been implementing and scaling out in different countries. At this time, I will just ask Isata to kind of jump in and continue with the specific case for Burkina Faso. Isata, can you unmute and also turn on your camera so that we can see you? Sander, kindly continue to show this slide. Esat, are you there?
Give me one second. I'm putting the slides back up. Apologies for that.
Let me just check to be sure that Esata is. I think she doesn't seem to be online. What's going on? Okay, no, she's there. Okay. Esata, I ask you to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Please turn on your camera and then you can make your presentation.
Okay. Can I start?
Please start. You have 10 minutes maximum.
Okay, thank you very much. I am going to present here thank you very much. I'm going to present here the technology for Africa. I think this is, Sandra, this is not the good slide. Hello?
Okay, is that not
No, this is not the good slide.
Oh, okay, just hold on. One moment then, if that is not the good slide.
Yes, this is not the good slide.
Can we ask IIT Communications, please, to bring it up your...
I have sent it yesterday evening. This.
Okay, hold on, Isata. Let's wait for IIT Communications to project the correct slide.
Yes.
Okay. Just one moment, everyone. Please give us some time. Okay, great.
Yes, this is a good style. Okay, thank you very much. As I am said, I am going to present the third water-enabled compact stories from Burkina Faso. Next, please. Do you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, next. The Burkina Faso is a Sahelian country with two seasons, rainy and dry. And the country is facing to drought. Mainly during rainy season. As you can see in the figure, the rainfall index in Cascade region of Burkina Faso, if you take the years 2017, we can see that the total rainfall is lower than average. And the following years,
Isata, you can turn off your camera so that we will hear you very well.
I have the problem with my laptop. I use my mobile phone.
Yes, you can off your video so that it will be clearer.
1 minute. Yes, my video is off. Yes, do you see me now? It's okay.
Okay.
Hello. Yes. As I see, if the country is facing to rainfall variabilities like drought and flood during rainy season, and we have also the variability of rain year to year, as we can show in the rainfall index of Cascade region. The years 2017 have a rainfall, total rainfall is lower than average, and the following years we have a lot of rain. What is the situation during the dry season? During the dry season, the quantity of available water for agriculture is very low than needs. Hence, most of developed areas are not farmed during this period. Also, the obsolescence of hydraulic infrastructure and bad agricultural water management by farmers decrease water productivities in this area. It is for how the rainfield and irrigated crop yield is very low in Burkina Faso. For example, if we take the past 10 years, for example, rice yields is lowland rainfield rice yield is average 1.5 ton per hectare compared to the potential 5 ton per hectare. For sorghum, the average yield during these 10 years is 1.2 ton per hectare. This is very low. This is the actual situation. If we consider the climate projection in the future, all projection isn't shiny. They show that in the future, the situation of drought and sometimes flood will be very important. Add to that, we are also the growth of population. This population growth increase water need by other users like domestic needs, industrial needs, and others. That shows that in the future, the water for agriculture, the quantity of water for agriculture will be decreased in the future. In this condition, we can say that promote the proven technology in agricultural water management is then very crucial for building resilience. That contribute to achieve this resilience for smallholder farmers by working with sorghum and rice compact in Burkina Faso. Next slide, please. As you can see in the map, the intervention zone of that activity in Burkina Faso, that activity is carried out in 9 areas, 9 zones. The center and north part, we are sorghum activities, and centers and west part, blue color, we are rice activities. It is important to note here that the main production rice area in Burkina Faso is based in the west area. This is for why we are showing this area to demonstrate that work technology. The next, please. What is the technology we are delivering in Burkina Faso? In Burkina Faso, as it is said at the beginning, we are facing to water scarcity in main plain. Not enough surface water to irrigate all area developed. It is for what we are proposed to use the tube well technologies, as you can see in the first picture, to mobilize groundwater for dry season rice production. And we are implementing these technologies in Bama and Sendu plain. This is for to improve the quantity of water. And to improve water productivities, as you know, I am saying that the hydraulic infrastructure has obsolescence and farmers have not good practice. They farm rice in flooding conditions. Then we are promote alternate wetting and drying technologies to improve water productivities. As you can see, we use piezometer to monitoring the level of groundwater. When groundwater level is light, we can irrigate. As another technologies, please, next slide. As another technologies to avoid water loss in infrastructure, we propose to use a closed pipe convenience system. When we pumping water by tube well, we use directly the closed pipe convenience system. This allows to lose to 5 again water loss. during dry season rice production. Please, the next. Next. Now I'm going to show some technology promote for sorghum, rainy sorghum production. As you will see in the first map, these technologies is promoted in the centers and north part of Burkina Faso. We can say that the center is not part of Burkina Faso. The annual rainfall is very low, around 1,700 per year. And in this area, most soil are very degraded. It is for why we are making the promotion of Zai technologies. The first picture, half-moon technologies, as you can see, and limestone technologies. These three technologies allow to maintain some standing water in the field, promote water infiltration, and this can increase soil moisture, and that revive again drop during rainy season for sorghum production. Please, the next. What method have you used to deliver these technologies? To deliver these technologies like tube well, alternate wetting and drying, Zai, limestone, and half-moon technologies, we have used many methods like demonstration plots, training workshops, field days, regional multi-stakeholder meeting. As you can see some picture here, the first is a stakeholder meeting. Second is a training in room. And the third is about the field days for sorghum. Please, can you move? Next. Next slide, please. Here, we are training the farmers to how to dig tube well. Because for us, it is important for farmers to dig this tube well by themselves. That can reduce the cost of the technologies. And we train farmers, as you can see in the first picture, to dig the tube well. And the second, it's the same training do in the another rice farming plane. The last picture shows we are training farmers to how to construct the half-moon technologies, how to construct half-moon technologies. Thank you. And as achievement, we can say that the access to water, best and good agricultural water management technologies are improved, and farmer leaders, extension agents have access to these technologies through training, field demonstration, and on-field demonstration. And also, we are make the demonstration plot for rice off-season rice production in 4 regions in Burkina Faso, where in this region, these plains are facing to water scarcity during dry season. And for rainy season, sorghum production, we have made the demonstration, as you can see in the picture, half-moon, they fill with half-moon technologies, they fill with Zai technologies in 4 regions, the main region where water rainfall is low and soil is degraded. As increased productivity.
Aissata,
yes.
Aissata, please try and round up. Our time is gone.
Okay.
So try and conclude. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. As increasing of yield, we can say that yield increase for 50% to 100% for rice and sorghum in these technologies. Please, another slide. Yes, as you can see, over 2,000 farmers, extension agents are exposed to this good agricultural water management practice, and they adopt these technologies in many regions of Burkina Faso. Thank you very much. Merci pour votre aimable attention.
Thank you very much, Isata. So I'll pass it on now to Dr. Kwesi Atakra to continue with the questioning and discussion session. Over to you, Kwesi.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Funke. Thank you for moderating this session. There are a number of questions that have been raised. Because of time, we would not get through the Mentimeter bits, but I'd like to highlight a few of the questions that have been raised so that we will see comments that the panelists can provide. First of all, there's a question coming in from Utashi Sirane, and he or she says, Africa has one of the 2 biggest river basins in the world. However, very little is known about the characteristics. And he says, I believe many other water bodies suffer from the same problem. What are the main actions conducted by the institutions present in today's panel to improve the knowledge of Africa's water bodies, rivers, lakes, groundwater, etc.? I don't know, probably, Sanda, would you want to comment on that? Is this part of the work that IMI is involved in, trying to understand these water bodies as they exist in the continent?
Yes, thank you for that question. IMI is working tremendously on that. It is true that in Africa, the network of meteorological stations, of flow discharge stations, other knowledge on the basins is relatively low. There are many alternatives. Mostly of them are remote sensing based, so with satellites, monitoring the water resources, trying to see where are the users within the basin, and then support the basin authorities to make the basin management more effective. So IMI has developed a lot of tools for this, looking at drought monitoring, flood monitoring, operational, but also water accounting. And water accounting is a system where you can, using remote sensing, the public domain data sets, you can map the water resources, you can map those users within the basin, and analyze where the water is being used and by whom. So this greatly helps the governments, the basin authorities to better manage the water resources within the basin, and not only, of course, within the basin, but also between countries. This is being done for the actual situation, but new developments that we are working on also integrate climate change scenarios so that we also know what are the future water accounts and where will the stress occur. And if we have an intervention in a certain location, like building a dam or expanding irrigated area, where can we then intervene within, what will be the impact on the other water uses, and how does it affect, for example, the cities or the industries that also require the water. So yes, IMI is definitely working on the less known within the large basins within Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Related to that is a question from Willie Bimponda Manitu, and he says the resilience, well, it's he or she, the resilience of water, food, agricultural production, and the climate is a big challenge for agricultural sustainability and profitability in Africa. How do we get our governments and NGOs to assist producers with irrigation or water supply infrastructure? What is the experience across the the room in terms of how can we get governments to really assist producers, because the focus here is on producers. Who would want to address that? Niraj, would you want to give it a try?
Well, sure. From the African Development Bank perspective, rural infrastructure is a very high priority, and that, of course, includes irrigation infrastructure. But increasingly, the bank is taking a integrated approach to infrastructure. So it's not just about production, but it's about post-production, about storage, about logistics, about access to market, so that because we need to connect the dots, we need to have a holistic approach to building infrastructure to ensure that it is sustainable and leads to desired results. So in the Southern Africa region, we are increasingly putting in place this new approach, and we find the governments to be quite responsive to that. In fact, setting up special agro processing zones, which brings this holistic approach to fruition in the form of creating secondary cities, has been the flagship product for the bank, and our discussion as well as implementation with governments has been very encouraging in this aspect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Niraj. That's very important to know that the bank places a lot of priority in this. I think the ultimate challenge is the last mile delivery systems. Because once these agreements are signed at the level of countries, how we get the local NGOs and the local farmer communities to be able to tap into it. I think that's an area where we need to have more engagement and more investment support to make that happen. Okay, let me take another question from Florence. Florence Ndidi Igwenome. She says, water is one of the three most essential to human ecosystem and generally in agricultural practice. Why is it not given a priority concern as in protecting the riverine areas, especially in Africa, considering its role in climate change mitigation? I think this is quite similar to what Sanda responded on, but this is the challenge about riverine areas. What can be done through projects such as have been discussed to support riverine areas. And I believe the answer that Sanda gave covers this quite well. But there is one question here which is specifically directed at Sanda. It says, thanks Dr. Zwart for making emphasis that 3 crops per year in Africa can only be achieved with irrigation. Lack of irrigation in Africa is a drawback to our food sufficiency. That's the missing link we must get done by all means, and also to do it sustainably. I believe we would all agree that the infrastructure for making sure that irrigation facilities out there is a key domain for quite a lot of us. But I don't know if any of the panelists want to make a point on this one. Yes, please go ahead.
Sorry for talking again. It also relates to the previous point that my colleague from the AFDB responded to. Irrigation infrastructure is tremendously important, but very often we still think about irrigation schemes, large-scale infrastructure, canals, dams, etc. But what is very important, and also the African Union has acknowledged that, is the farmer-led irrigation. Yeah, so think about a bottom-up approach where it's not government or donors who are responsible for construction of irrigation infrastructure, but where we provide an enabling environment for small-scale farmers to invest in irrigation infrastructure in their own fields. So we talk about the smaller areas, 1 to 3 hectares. If you are a farmer, or if you have a group of farmers that jointly want to invest, then the areas can become larger. But this is a very, let's say, underestimated aspect of irrigation in Africa. And actually, the largest part of share of irrigation area in Africa is farmer-led irrigation. So certain governments there already have started investing in that, like for example the government of Rwanda, but also in Ghana it's becoming more and more common that programs are developed that support individual farmers and groups of farmers to invest in irrigation. And I think that is something also the larger donors, they should take it into account, that irrigation is not only building schemes and large-scale infrastructure, but also support the small-scale farmers in a bottom-up approach to invest in irrigation and develop their new areas. It has been proven that there's a more sustainable approach. Often the crop productivities are higher in farm-led irrigation developed areas. And so it should really get more attention. Thank you. Dr. Kwesi, you're muted.
Hi, Kwesi, you are muted.
Yeah, sorry, my apologies. I was saying that's a very important point Sandra has made, that when we talk about irrigation infrastructure, we're not talking about the massive irrigation scheme development, but there are all kinds of small, medium scale things that small farmer groups can even get involved in. And I think that's one of the key things we have to emphasize in wrapping this up, that it's a key area. Another key point that has been raised is that, generally the lack of infrastructure is key, but we're not just talking about large systems alone. We have these other proven technologies at small scale, and I think that's particularly important. I know that our time has gone, but please allow us to, if we can just, I was gonna say, let's run one final Mentimeter and use that to close, but I've been alerted that there may not be enough time to do that. I think what we can all agree on, is that we've highlighted the crucial importance of water. Nobody we can do without water, and the whole issues of water, they cut across various domains. And we've also realized that there are already technologies that are there. There are institutions, there are proven technologies at different scales, from some very small, community-driven, to initiatives that governments may be running. And that we really need innovative financing that reaches out to these levels, these small levels also, not just at the top level. So it's really about the last mile approach. That's when we really get poverty and food security issues addressed. So that has very strongly been made. And finally, it is also good to recognize that we have agencies such as the African Development Bank that has actually established a water plan and a water strategy with pillars, and one of those pillars supporting agriculture and having that link. It's another very good example, and linked to that is the initiative of the Technologies for African Agricultural Transformation, where water is a key component. Therefore, moving into the next phase of TAT, it is the expectation and the anticipation that water will be a significant part of that. Not just existing in itself as a compact, but also seeing how water issues cut across all the commodity compacts that are there. So these are very important. And my final comment is to say that it's also been said that we're talking about nexus issues. We're talking about multi-stakeholder engagement. We're talking about, polycentric, that's one word I had. polycentric, mechanisms for governance. So all these are important to make sure that we can advance the cause of water in addressing the challenges we face from climate change with regard to agriculture. So, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, I just want to thank all of you.
Kwesi, can I give you one announcement? Yeah. Yes. Thanks, Kwesi. Just to emphasize that the rest of the World Water Week, even in the next 1 hour, there will be another session that is looking at how we can also scale water innovations across different value chains, and several other sessions planned for this week. I want to encourage participants to register for these various sessions and to get more information. There are quite some of the questions that have been raised there that we have not been able to respond to. You can get some answers to these questions. Because of time, we could not get into them. In particular, Sandra talked about the small-scale irrigation, farmer-led irrigation system, which does not need big infrastructure, which is actually very common. And the African Union with the World Bank, with FAO and IMI, just in a week's time, we'll be having another virtual forum where we are going to look at the guide that the World Bank has prepared to help countries and other investors on how to actually incentivize and develop that sector rapidly, because we need to accelerate action in the farmer-led irrigation development in Africa. So I'll forward it to participants as well. Please join this virtual forum and get to see experiences from different countries and practical guides on how to develop water for food production. Thank you very much. Just thought it would be useful to mention that as well.
Funke, thank you very much. I think that's very important information. Let me assure those of you who have asked for the slides, we've all indicated, as long as you have your email put in the chat box, Altai will make sure you have access to the slide set, so that you can go through them and follow things up. If you have any follow-up on any of the issues, you can also write to Atai. I put his email in the chat box a while ago. And with that, I want to thank all the keynote presenters, as well as thank all the panelists, thank my co-moderator, Funke. I believe it has been a very useful exercise, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the week and beyond. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kwesi. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Kwesi, are we going to have a photograph?
Oh, okay. Well, we still have 53 people. Okay, can you turn on your videos? Please turn on your videos. Let's do that very quickly. Turn on your videos. Those of you who are still there. And then you go to the right corner, top corner. You will see the icon which says view. Click on that icon and put it in gallery. Put it in gallery mode. Yeah, so top right corner, very good. I can see a lot of people. And make sure your video is open. Turn your video on. Yeah, I can see a lot of people. I see Abdel Hamid Hamal with a very beautiful smile. I can see Peter Kolawole. Yeah, Michael Edet, your video is not on. Ekwedosa, your video is not on. Atai would help to take some photos and give him a few minutes, because he has to cover more than one frame. Aisata's video is also not on, but I think because she's using her phone. Yes. Why don't you wave, at least wave and smile or something? You are all looking so serious. Think about the joy of having water, If you have water, you should be happy. I can see Professor Frejene, also there. Okay. Atai, have you been able to take some shots?
Yes, waiting for this, the second set of the pages. Okay, yes.
So you are okay now?
No, not yet, not yet.
Okay, all right. Please give him a few more minutes. We want to make sure we can capture everybody, but a lot of people still have their videos off.
Yes.
Narudin, Salaudin, Innocent, Kevin, Kwaju, Felix, Badolo, unless it's just not opening on my system.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you also very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.